What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Struggle to Strength podcast, your source for real life application on how to turn your struggles into strengths in all things mind, muscle, and money. All right, so that was an amazing episode that we just recorded with Tommy Snider. I learned a lot. Travis, how you feeling about it?
Yeah, that was awesome. There's so many good pieces of wisdom in there, action items. He's a cool guy, entertaining. It was good.
And he gave us some homework. So we're going to pass this on to you guys. Today, we had Tommy Snider come on. He is a legend at 24-Hour Fitness, one of the top trainers there. And then he knew that something was missing. So now, fast forward to today, he's worked with over 50,000 hours with his clients, everyone from CEOs to stay-at-home moms, giving them the cure to metabolic and nutrition related disease and putting power back in the client's hands. This is just amazing. I mean, he gave us his 6 pillars to success for everybody that I highly recommend y'all listen to. This is way more than just training and nutrition. And then we also discussed the 6 human needs. And he gave us some homework. So what we want you to do at the end of this episode is we're going to want you to write down these 6 human needs and rank them in order from most to least important, but then write a sentence or two about why you put them there. And we're going to tell you what that means. We're going to tell you how this can lead to your purpose. So a phenomenal episode with a phenomenal guest from Tommy. We have definitely not seen the last of him. I would love to have him back on the show. So stay tuned, get your notepads ready, get ready to do your homework, and we'll see you inside. Dude, I'm very interested in learning more about kind of your career trajectory here. It sounds like you and I have taken a similar approach, but and mostly just being that we started at 24-Hour Fitness and then, yeah, hell yeah. And then continued on our own. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about you, pick your brain just on that whole, the whole process from when you started to how you ended up to where you are now. But I guess to start, I'd love for you to give the listeners just an idea of who you are, where you're from, what you do, and how you got to where and what you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Tommy Snider, and I've been in the fitness industry for, I think it's 19 years now. And as far as start goes, I'm an interesting combination of what I like to describe as an athlete that can accomplish anything, but also an artist that loves to create and understands people at their core level. And there's not typically that fusion in the body. And so I've taken that and run with it. My dad, when I was growing up, he taught basically samurai. So I'm a black belt in samurai. And so meditation was a thing when I was about 8, 9 years old, 10 years old. We worked with energy a lot and just what that looks like as far as honor codes and all that. So fast forward to 20 years old, that's when I said, hey, what am I going to do with these tools? And fitness and health was the first option. And then I just had beautiful mentors along the way to help me skyrocket my career and understand how to talk to humans at a high level and meet them where they're at and understand where they want to go and take that step by step up the steps to where they want and just unlocking that each step. And we'll talk about more pillars as far as what that looks like overall. Middle of my career, well, actually a couple years into my career, I met this guy in Utah, he was actually the number one 24-hour fitness trainer in the nation at the time. And we became best friends, and he really hacked nutrition at a high level. And he ended up having the number one fitness company in Utah. And so then I became a partner early on. I opened my first office in San Jose, California. So that was kind of the burst onto the scene where there's a lot of details in between that, but it was more or less unlocked results for me and what that looks like for others. And then it was all about me, finding the truth, finding what that truth is for myself, but also as a facilitator, but also for each individual person. So that's kind of, for me, that's, deep purpose. And to me, a lot of this information that people need is super well-rounded, but we're all kind of separated in our fields, personal trainer, nutrition, life coach, it's all everywhere. Right. So to me, it's bringing it all together And so what I do on a weekly is I meet people on a 30-minute basis. We dive to the bottom of their ocean, and say, hey, what are you proud of? What's most powerful in your life, ritual wise? And then move on to like what we need to work on. And then, down the road is like 6, 8, even 10 months, like all of a sudden they're a brand new person with brand new outlook on what they can do, what their freedom looks like, and what exponential actually means.
Dude, I love that. I think the industry is going in this direction. It's trending in this direction. Like people are starting to understand that everything starts up here. Like you have to have your mind right, and you have to have your head in a good place. You have to do all of this, the change that you're striving for because you love yourself, not because you want to change things about yourself because you don't love them. So I love this. This is going to be a really good conversation. I just got really excited. I don't think enough people are taking this holistic approach. It's not just macros and training programs anymore. It's not just calories and workouts. This shit goes way deeper than that. So I'm very excited to dive in. I guess my first question, growing up in the environment that you did, your samurai black belt, you said you learned a lot about energy. How much of what you learned in that phase of your life, I imagine it was very similar to like traditional Chinese medicine type of approach. How much of that, like now, do you refer back to?
Yeah, one thing I really feel is like just what honor is almost a vibration that's been like plucked out of our American society. And honor the body, honor the mind, honor the heart, honor whatever. And it's like a code essentially. And I feel like, not to get religious, but like religion, it's sometimes can be one lane. And for me, it's like just open. And how can I open up and create like more freedom, for myself, but also for others. And that's based on perspective or experience. So to me, it's being able to be patient. And my dad used to use this phrase, like, it's all about like one punch, one step. And, he used to have me, throw 100, 200 perfect punches. And we used to have this candlestick that was made by a welder. And it was about 5.5 feet tall. And you have to put out the candle with a perfect punch. And if it's not perfect, then you don't understand what that feels like. And so it was this great feedback loop of deep practice, but also like being able to get that gold at the end of the rainbow. And so it was great feedback loops for me on like what real practice is and what mastery looks like as a child. And I was playing sports at the time, but sometimes those feedback loops weren't really solid. So it was great to have that foundation to fall back on, because like I never could detour my mindset based on like one moment. And so just keep showing up, and then get those reps in. So I feel like it was huge. And it's actually helping me more now than it did like in my 20s, because, we're all finding ourselves in our 20s. And, it was all about like, how much weight can I lift? How can I look? How can I show up? What does it mean to be a king? All those things. So I love that you asked me that. That's good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And I love the feedback loops and, the other things that you've learned here, one punch, one step. What practices? I feel like this is something that we see in the weight room a lot. People go into the weight room to work out. They don't go to practice. And so they, like you said, like in their early 20s, they want to lift more weight. They want to get more reps. Like they want to like show up a certain way, but they're not practicing. So how can we reframe our brain around this? Like, how can we reframe our brain around practice? You had these feedback loops. How can we sort of transition that same mindset into the health and fitness space? How do you do that for your clients?
Interesting. What comes up for me is that we're taught to get what we want in 90 days. And to me, that's a code that doesn't like satisfy. It's more, That's more marketing of how can I get clients. It's not like how can I serve you at a high level. And I'm sure you guys know it takes 10,000 hours to master something, which is 5 years, 40 hours a week. And if you really know what mastery looks like, it can calm you instead of feeling like not enough or overcompensate. And to me, it's like that steadiness of what that looks like, and like each one of those like hours in the gym, each rep, every time that you push a little bit farther, which I love that representation of growth in the gym because it's just easy, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, I did this thing. And so, but I think in society, like you kind of, I think you touched on it earlier, of like, it's not just about our bodies, it's about like how we feel. And I love that understanding of the way we feel is coming into our culture now, because it's the direct correlation, instead of, I'm just going to get this pump, I'm going to leave the gym and everything's going to be great. I'm going to get the girls, right? I'm going to feel powerful. I'm going to be the alpha in my tribe, whatever that looks like. So to me, it's more about just like being that steadiness and saying like, hey, I'm going to discover more of myself each step. And yeah, when I put all the plates on leg press and I have somebody sit on top of it, great. But what are you going to do then? And that's, for me, that was part of my journey. It's like, okay, well, what's going to happen after that? And that's when I started to find, more yoga, more other practices that were more yin, the opposite of weight training, which is force. And then I felt like so much more balanced, and I'm 41 now. So I think that's the key to longevity, is like, what is that balance? So that, to me, that's what helped a lot in my journey.
Well, dude, I was going to say you look 25, so I'm listening to what you're saying.
I was going to say the exact same thing. You look great for 41. I hope I look like you. And I think like we're talking about like balance and like the journey, and those things are like so important. And that's kind of a journey in itself that I've been noticing. I was thinking about this the other day, because like I started my business doing like professional content creation, videography, photography 2 years ago. And I've been doing it, 40 plus hours a week, every week for the past 2 years. And it's, so it hasn't been like a super long time, but I feel like I'm at a place where it's like, it's definitely, the work that I do is professional and like the clients like it, but it's like where I see myself in my head, I feel like I'm about 1/3 there, which is interesting that you say that, because it's like, that's about 1/3 of the way towards like the 10,000 hours kind of, if it's 40 hours a week. So it's just interesting that you said that, because I'm like, that's literally the way I feel. I feel like I'm like 1/3 of the way to being where like I see myself being in my head when it comes to like the quality. And I think that that's like super relatable to like everything else, especially like a fitness journey. And because it just takes us such a long time to get to where you're going, like you do have to love the actual journey, because that's like most of it. And then what? You're just at a destination, like.
Then what?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. You look around and you're like, well, and some people, especially in our country, like in our society, will sacrifice everything to get to that destination, and then look around. They're like, well, shit, like where's everyone? Like, where's my friends? Where's my family? Like, what did I do?
That's where the balance comes
in. What do I
in.
have to show for this? And yeah, that's where the balance comes in.
Yeah.
So if like Travis and I, like everybody, we have this vision of where we want to be in our head. You were talking about like a step-by-step approach and like pillars to get there. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Definitely. First of all, knowing what it takes, like what he just said about, I'm 2 years in, understanding what society gives us as far as attention span. In the last decade, it's went from 15 minutes to 30 seconds, which is staggering. And what takes me off of my path, and just that awareness alone, it's like, oh, okay, naturally my attention is going to wander and look for validation somewhere. And so for me, it's more about like going back to that that steady path. And I'm sure after 2 years, you're starting to see like the future before it happens, and you're able to manifest that. And I feel important, like with our health, is like, and our energy is as far as to be able to get to that place. And that's just, time in the paint and the reps, like showing up and not being distracted along the way, or telling yourself you're a failure when you are distracted, or you feel like you lost in some form. So for me, that's number one. But the pillars I have, and I break it down into 5, but there's actually a 6th one. The first one is the foundation of the body, which is, what you fuel it with, nutrition. And it's the biological relationship and the emotional relationship, and how it always spins. And that's something that we aren't taught. We're taught to be perfect in the space, and we don't understand how to move and shake with it. And also, like, making sure you're eating for your energy. One thing I've been able to discover is how to stabilize blood sugar every single time and every meal, every step of the day. And so then I can unlock like highest states of mental clarity, what that highest energy looks like without caffeine. And then also that builds confidence, because then you feel great. And when you feel great and you have enough and you're fueled up, at that point, you're not looking for something else. You don't need anything else. And so that's number one. And that's what the diet industry doesn't allow us to feel, because it's all about taking something away. What I do is I give all the way back, and then the body just naturally heals itself at a higher state. So that's number one. Number 2 is exercise. And the way exercise works with nutrition is so important in the metabolic system, because you're either like overstimulating and not having enough, like on the nutrition portion, or you have too much at sometimes, and it's hard to like use your body. And so for us, like, to be able to understand how that system works really well, at that point, I think that gyms would be lined floor to ceiling with before and after pictures if we truly understood what that looks like. So that's number one. And what is the balance between, number 2, what is the balance between exercise? There's weight training, right? There's force, and there's like cardio, which can support that. But some of those things can take away from the result that you're looking for. And then what's the recovery look like, as far as like, do I stretch? Do I open my body when I'm tightening it? And so all of those things are so imperative. But the third thing is mindset. And oftentimes I say that's the first thing, like you said earlier. But until you understand these principles, it's very hard to get to here. Because most people, when they're getting into this space, it's based on scarcity, right? If I could just lose 10 pounds, I'd be okay. And then as soon as they alleviate that feeling and they feel good in their body, it's like, oh, I'm not in scarcity anymore. And then humans don't know how to build on abundance, because all marketing is based on scarcity. So for us, like, how do we build on abundance with mindset, and like really understand the hero's journey is like, you made through that first phase. So how do we get here? And steadying the mind, like kind of what we talked about at the beginning, is like what those concepts understand. Like, how do we understand the concepts that are in that framework, which is being proud of yourself, which most of us aren't, because we're jumping to the next lily pad and not like feeling enough, kind of like what you said after you get to the top of the mountain. And then also like being able to have a beautiful outlook on challenge. Like, what is that going to give back to me, instead of like taking me off of this winning pedestal? And it goes back to where, like, when we got a B or a C instead of an A, and like that just judgment of metric versus like, oh, I'm actually just on the journey, and this is the wisdom I need to keep going. Right. And then it just snaps you into that phase. So building on abundance and a mindset is important. Rituals. So number 4, rituals always need to grow. So when I'm working with someone, what are those rituals that empower your life? And so what I do is based on diagnosis, but I know based on environment of typical humans, what they do for a living, what America provides, like how we celebrate, et cetera, are all going to fall into that. So for me, it's about slow growth in that, because I know that I'm going to get so much from these first 3 that I can build these long-term. So I'm not like rushing to get every single little thing in. And at that point, like, people have like look back like 3-6 months from now, and they're like, oh, wow, like there's so much growth there. And number 5 is schedule. So becoming a master at your schedule is so important, from when you wake up to when you go to bed, and then you're not playing from behind. And to me, what I teach people the most is foresight. So seeing the future, when you travel, when you come back in, when you accomplish something, when you change seasons, so important. So there's one thing that I talk about as far as the 365-day cycle that we call culture. And I say that transition are the biggest thing that throw off rituals, especially health rituals. So I help people become a master at transition. So at that point, it's not about falling down. It's about getting back up every single time. It's like what Nikki said to Rocky, I didn't hear no bell. And just keep getting back up, keep staying on that path. And the sixth one is the most important. And I kind of touched on a little bit of that earlier. It's healthy accountability. So what is healthy accountability? Most of us learned coaching or how to do things based on toxic coaching, meaning you suck, get up, don't cry, push past, don't worry about how you feel, move forward. And to me, like, that is the most deterrent, because all of a sudden, I'm getting a D, I'm getting an F, like I must not be good enough. And so for me, it's healthy accountability looks like first looking at like what your wins are. And I'm talking about like the daily, the weekly, whatever that is. And then being able to go into like, what's one thing I can improve this week? What is one word I want to use as a compass to allow me to magnetize toward that word? And it could be based on a challenge, right? And so like that gentle approach doesn't feel like crashing. And then all of a sudden we've unlocked literally whatever we want.
Dude, I relate to this on such a strong level. This is amazing. This is amazing. Very similar process that I use it with our clients is like, you have to celebrate some shit. Like you have to celebrate some shit. You have to get in touch with your feminine side. You have to get in touch with your emotions. Like self-care is not gender specific. And there's a few things that you said that really jumped out to me. One was on the mindset piece. Like obviously nutrition and exercise, we all know is important. Like I think that's been shoveled down people's throats for years and years and years. We all know it. The last part of your pillar, the pillars that you talked about, the last four really, really resonated with me. I was literally just talking to my girlfriend about, I wasn't like celebrating things enough. Like I finished a set on leg press and it was a beautiful set. I should have been really proud of it. She was really proud of it. And the second I racked the weight, I started immediately analyzing what I could have done better. Like I didn't take time to celebrate. It was a PR. Like I didn't take time to celebrate the PR. Same thing on hack squat, same thing on everything else that I do. And I realized like, dude, I'm not proud enough of myself before I start analyzing where I can improve. That's something I need to start doing. The other thing was the schedule. You mentioned that transition is the biggest thing to throw off our rituals. And I think of like COVID and not even that, but like seasons. Your kids go back to school. You have like things come up in your life.
Family and friends come and visit you.
Family and friends come visit. You go on vacation. Like even just being around people that aren't like normally like doing what you're doing will throw off your ritual. It'll throw off your cycle. And one of the last things that kind of like resonates with me in addition to that is you can only get better at getting back on track if you fall off track. Like you don't just get better at getting back on track if you're perfect all the time. So that healthy accountability of like, you need to learn how to get back into your schedule, how to get back into your routine in a positive way that's helpful. Like all of these things, I guess this is what I'm getting at is like, they're all connected. Like, and I think you mentioned that earlier, but they're all connected. It's not like you're cherry picking things here. So was this something that you learned from like growing up, or is this something that you noticed helped you during your journey and you realize that this isn't like, there is a yin and a yang to this?
Oh, that's a powerful question. And my mind just went like, so it's definitely a combo. I learned through the reflection of other people plus myself. And at the beginning of my career, 19 years ago, it was more about how can I be the best? How can I win? And that's how I was one of the top 5 grossing trainers and the biggest superpower of gyms of all time, because of just that compass. And I just happened to have, like, basically when I first came in, the best sales manager in the United States, like literally waiting for me to teach me how to talk to people. And then I eventually met my mentor, which I told you was in Utah, which he was the best. And so for me, that drive and, basically seeking the equivalent of like how my father's love made me feel, and helping me understand, like, to pull me toward that. Now, I would see, like, I still see usually about 20 people a day, about 10 hours a day. And so I have close to 50,000 hours of experience now. So 5 times a master. So really it was the reps of, like, testing what I had. And it started with nutrition, exercise, and mindset. And I would be able to show them what they needed to see, but also, like, have the codes of nutrition, because, like, I've never seen the way our nutrition framework that we developed with my old mentor help create more freedom and just feeling the power. And there's a lot of misconceptions that we use that nobody really else does, because it's deemed like a problem. So for me, like, really understanding the way people respond, and me observing that, and kind of me saying, like, not taking no for an answer, meaning not thinking that I'm going to fail ever. I'm just going to hold this space and making sure that we're going to get there no matter what. And also just showing up in a loving way. It's like, I see you, versus like, why did you eat that cookie? It's totally different. So for me, in that place, I also learned how to be more gentle with myself. And so then at that point, it was more about grace and flow. And the people showed me, as well as, like, me saying, like, okay, I'm showing up for all these people. Like, what does that reflect on me? And so when I started to get my upper 20s and even early 30s, it was more about, like, I actually never feel off track. It's more or less like, oh, if I don't feel aligned, and I talk about alignment a lot, and alignment is a feeling, not a metric, is like, how does that work for people? And being able to say, I just noticed, like, certain things come from that, where the rest of the pillars, like, would just show themselves. And because, like, we're the #1 transformation coaching system in Utah, and I'm the ABC Board nutrition expert, it's just like levels built on top of levels, where you get to, like, see what's going on, right? It's like Elon Musk and electric cars. Like, there's other electric cars, but he has the whole system, right? And because he has the reps and, like, that time that he puts in, like, he's able to learn not from his own production, but the reflection of, like, what actually is going on outside of him. So I feel like just being open to that is important. And I think usually when we get caught up in, like, oh, am I good enough as a facilitator? It's more about you than actually what's going on with that person. And we get lost in that sometimes, and we want to force someone to do this thing, but we're actually missing some of the pillars, and we're just not aware of what's going on. So then that creates a disconnect when you're trying to get somebody, like, from 300 pounds to abs. Like, people can have all of that, but I don't describe it as abs. I describe it as having an amazing power to weight ratio, to where you feel super bouncy and young. And that's freedom. It's not about, like, the abdominals. Like, it's like, how do you show up in life to where you just feel great and that bounce? And then that helps others see that. And so I don't do a lot of marketing. That's why I don't do a lot of podcasts. Like, my followers aren't super high. I'm actually going to get into that. But in 19 years, I do basically the volume of 10 trainers by myself. And why? How does that happen? It happens by, like, really focusing on that person and saying, like, how can I curate you and show up for you in the ways that you need me to show up? And how can I ask you quality questions so that you find the answers, even though that I know them? And then they're leading themselves. And so then they build that massive confidence to where everyone in their circle notices. And then that referral system just comes back to me. And so I just constantly create a circle with that.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Elon Musk, here's Elon Musk talking about pillar number 6.
We got to be excited about the future. We got to do things that make us want to live. You know, it cannot always be about problems every day. I mean, do you want to wake up every morning and everything's just a problem? Well, what inspires you and what makes you excited about the future? There's got to be some things like that.
Wow.
That's it. Had to play that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think the common misconception here is that I love what you said, Tommy, about it's not about the abs. Like, it's not about what you think you're working for. Like, creating a healthy and curating a positive life, the abs are a side effect. Like that, they just come along, like, and you feel young and bouncy, and you're excited about the future, and you're excited about doing things for yourself. Well, now you're just a healthy, happy person. And healthy, happy people, like, they look like healthy, happy people. So, like, yeah, you might have abs, but I think what I really like about your approach, and what I really agree with, is that you're not focused on the abs. You're like, no. Let's focus on these things. Let's create a strong schedule. Let's get you really good at scheduling things. Let's make you a very ritualistic person. Let's hold you accountable in a very healthy way. Let's help you love yourself. Let's do some deep dives, and let's find your purpose. And then all of a sudden, those people are probably like, oh my God, I feel amazing. And like, look, I have abs.
That's what's kind of missing from a lot of this conversation too, about it's like people are talking about something in the wrong area. There's like a lot of people who are like, no, you need to be fit to be healthy. There's a lot of people who are like, no, just like whatever your body looks like is what you should be happy with. And the reality is that, like, you should just be healthy and happy, and whatever that looks like for you. Maybe that doesn't look like 6-pack abs for you, and that's totally fine, but like, you owe it to yourself to be healthy and happy. Really, it doesn't have to do with like other people.
And feel young and bouncy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that, because everyone knows what that's like. You remember, like, when you feel light, like when your body feels light, you feel strong, you feel powerful. The last thing that I wanted to jump into, and I know, like, obviously we're probably getting a little bit short on time, but the concept of deep purpose. I really want to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah. I wake up every day with that, and it just goes stronger. I feel like it's being able to listen to yourself, like the whisper. And I feel like a lot of us in our trajectory, when we're kids, we get said, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And there's this like cycle of like, oh, you go to school, and you go to college, and then you get a job. And like what our fathers and our grandfathers taught us is like, hey, you got to have safety so that you can retire when you're 50 or 60. And if you don't, then you won't have safety. And to me, like, rewriting that code is so important, because it doesn't always allow us, because we think we're supposed to do something, to hear that whisper or that calling, and to uncover that and know like what cultural programming doesn't allow us to access is so important. And also being able to know the voices, right? It's like, what is my ego doing? It's keeping me away from fear, right? And it's also empowering me with like my wins. And then my inner child, what does my inner child need? What perspective, like what kind of play, what kind of stuff do I need to go over and say, take back for what is yours, and reparent yourself to be able to say, hey, I have full on access and power in my inner child. And then the third thing is like our cultured self. And I touched on that earlier, but like, what is the training in that to where, oh, I'm going to do this thing so that I can be validated, kind of like what I said about my father's love earlier. And it was really, that got me in the door. But then I realized that once I kind of realized that I didn't need that, like I already had it, it was like, oh, well, then everything kind of fell away. But within that, like, I always followed my heart. I think that's the path of wisdom, is like knowing that we have all that we need. And sometimes when we don't feel like we have enough, we're looking for other things for that. And it's very hard, because at that point we're trying to bridge to our purpose instead of really grounding in what that looks like and really connecting to what it is. And that's all heart space. That's all your heart, all your higher self, whatever you want to call it. And like being able to come back to that center is important. And usually all the things that we go through as far as like protecting ourselves or surviving things or whatever that is, like it doesn't like allow us to like say, hey, this is safe to fully step into and be courageous because like you're worth it. And at that point, like sometimes by the time we reach that, we're already like providing, or we have a couple kids and like, I can't change this thing because I don't have enough money, blah, blah, blah. But it's easy to work when you're following your purpose. It's easy to spend time with people when you know that connection is one of the biggest human needs. And understanding fulfillment is really, really important. And one of the things that I teach is the 6 human needs and how it relates to our health and our purpose. And what I call it is the map of fulfillment. So there's a reason why we haven't been taught how to fulfill ourselves at a high level. And it's mainly so that others can teach us how to fulfill ourselves at a high level. And at that point, it becomes this maze of fulfillment. And purpose is equally aligned with fulfillment. And as soon as we put those in place, like abundance explodes. And so for me, I'm an advocate of purpose.
I love that. Okay. So you've tickled my curiosity now. Now I'm very interested, and I know like we'll go a little bit over it. I hope that's okay, but I would really like to learn about these 6 basic human needs and how can we find our purpose?
Absolutely. So to me, this is like one of the biggest things I give people. It's the first thing that I give them because at that point, like it gives them this new framework, this new compass. 6 human needs are contribution, certainty to feel safety and consistent, uncertainty to have adventure and the polarity of certainty, and then significance, love and connection. This is a framework. If somebody's like looking for fulfillment, like they're eating a lot, or they're watching TV or trying to escape, or they're messing up, sabotaging their health goals in some form, or goals of any kind, it's because they are not fulfilled. And so what I call them is like, we're reaching for these low-hanging fruits that like companies and, political higher ups like taught us in some form, and or parents. So for us to be able to say, rewrite that compass of like, hey, which 6 human need am I missing when I see myself reaching? And at that point, like it changes the coding in our body when we can choose right instead of left. And once I input that code and framework, like life becomes way better. And you're naturally like filtering through awareness, and you understand like what's super abundant for you and gives back. And it, going back to those feedback loops, it just superpowers you. It charges you up. And that charge is so important to how we treat ourselves, how we talk to ourselves each day. And when everyone around us is fulfilling themselves in a really low state, that means going back to that attention span that I talked about, or scrolling, needing to like see another thing, right? And it just gives us that small hit. But we don't really get those like really super deep ones. And when I'll talk to a client, if we're like in a deep space, and they'll be like really connected, I'd be like, you're probably not wanting a chocolate chip cookie right now, right? Or some random food to like lower your state just to get like that high peak and then that low. And at that point, like those little things that they see and find, it unlocks their purpose, and it shows them that, hey, wow, my kids are responding to me differently now. Like my husband is changing. Like I'm making more money at work. I'm also, my body's like super healthy. And then boom, everything changes. So, and helping people realize that is like kind of that proud great, feedback, and then that locks it in, and then they can't unchange that,
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I Googled it. I think the sixth is growth. Is
the
that
most
right?
important one.
Yeah. Yes. I think the sixth is growth. I really like this. This is the first time I'm learning about this. And what you just said towards the end there, it reminds me about, how people talk, people will talk about working out and fitness as it's more than just the gym. What you just said explains like why it's more than just the gym, like how it's more than just the gym, how it impacts life outside the gym. And everything we've talked about today really made it easy to understand about why it is, about the rituals, about the schedule, about the consistency, about having purpose, about feeling significance, about, being proud of yourself. Like all of these things come from putting yourself first and focusing on yourself and giving yourself love and attention and the things that your body needs. But it's so much more than just working out. It's so much more than just eating right. And so this is like a very full circle moment for me. I really appreciate you sharing all this information. This was amazing.
I would love, so the exercise is, I would love to rank them 1 through 6 of most important, and then just write one sentence why it's there. And then you'll know your rank. The rank has changed about 4 times in the last decade, but it'll meet you exactly where you're at right now, and that'll help a lot. Okay, so rank the 6 human needs from 1 to 6, most to least important, and then write one sentence about why they are in the place that they are, like why they're. I like that. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I like that. This is great. So we got some good action items for people on this episode. We got people, we can think about the 6 pillars. We can start incorporating those into our life. We can think about the 6 human needs and rank them and write about why they're there, and then just start to kind of work on what we're missing in our life and how we can create more purpose. I think this was super valuable, man. Tommy, I really appreciate you sharing this information with us today and coming on. Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I always appreciate an arena that you guys have. Of course. Yeah, of course. This was awesome. I know, myself included, Travis, all of our listeners, I know they're going to want to follow you, learn more about you. I know you said you're not huge on social media, but where can we find you? Where can we learn more about you? Why don't you give yourself a little bit of a plug? Yeah, so I'm actually looking to get on social media more. And so I have a framework set up to use my voice in a platform that's not just one-on-one. So my Instagram, it's Tommy, TOMMY _Snider, SNIDER. Our company is MasterMetabolic, so you can follow that as well. And we give a free talk or a session. If you guys have any questions about any of the things that we covered today, we can go a little deeper. And I just love to sit with people. So anything you guys need out there, I'm here for it. That would be awesome, man. I appreciate it. That's funny. My girlfriend's last name is Snider, but it's with a Y. So you had me think twice there for a second. Yeah. All right. Awesome. So everybody who's listening, I highly recommend that you go follow Tommy. I can only imagine the amount of value that you're going to put out into the world on the internet, in your socials. And then one last thing that I would love to hear from you is some parting words of wisdom for ourselves and our listeners. Oh, this is always a hard one, not to put you on the spot, but you just, I feel like you have a really good answer here. Yeah. Let me just handle that. Stress is the virus. Unconditional love is the antivirus. Boom. I love that. That's a huge mic drop at the end of the episode here. Yeah. Crushes all stress. Yeah, it really does. And my favorite part of that is stress will kill you. It is not just the perception of stress. It's not just a hard day at work. It's not just an argument with your partner. It's not just when the kids are sick or the dog needs to go to the vet. It is working out too much. It's working out for the wrong reasons because you hate the way that you look. It's feeding yourself things that don't agree with you. It's having a poor night's sleep because you don't have these rituals and schedules aligned. This is all stress. But unconditional love from yourself, from your partners, from the people around you, I love that. Those are very, very wise words of wisdom, Tommy. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Hell yeah.
Definitely,
All
man.
right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into another episode of the Struggle to Strength podcast. We will see you all next week.